What is the most disturbing fact about serial killers that you know? The Green River Killer Gary Ridgway. When I was a new teacher at a Native American school, we had Dave Reichart come speak to us about how Native American women made up a much higher number of victims of serial killers. He told us that when they were interviewing Ridgway after they finally got him to admit his crimes, he had raped and killed a prostitute one night, and then the next evening after dinner, he went to run an errand with his 6-year-old son. His son fell asleep in his truck, so he decided to drive back to the corpse and had sex with it while his kid was still sleeping in the truck. They asked him what would he have done if his son had caught him, and he answered, "Well, I would have killed him, of course." The detective said he said this casually and without any emotion. Did a research paper back in college, and if you look at the Hunting Humans, the encyclopedia of serial killers, it is disturbing how many were in jail previously for assault, rape, manslaughter, etc., and let out to extend their activity. One is probably reading this post RN. Carla Homolaka pleaded down to manslaughter after participating in the murders of at least 3 teen girls, including her own sister. She served a short sentence, after which she married her defense lawyer's brother. They had 3 kids together, and she lives free in Quebec. One of the worst, Pedro Lopez, served 14 years in jail. Then he was released 2 years early, put in an asylum, then was declared sane and released on a $70 bail. He promptly disappeared. David Parker Ray, aka the Toy Box Killer, would abduct women and then subject them to weeks of physical and sexual torture before letting them go after giving them a cocktail of drugs to make them forget their time together. The worst part, though, is he had a recording he would play for newly abducted women about what to expect. Transcripts of this recording exist, and I say this as a true crime fan who has read some fucked things. It's one of the most disturbing things I've ever read. Ed Gein used to give his neighbors venison. At his murder trial, he said he never killed a deer. I forget the exact number, but the FBI estimated that at any given time there are 50-plus active murderers in the U.S. that no one has yet identified as a serial killer. The lead theory, the reason there were so many serial killers in the 70s, is because lead use was at its peak. Lead pipes, leaded gasoline, etc. The decline in lead exposure aligns pretty directly with decline in serial killers in nations that banned it in gas and such. Obligatory note that correlation does not mean causation. Richard Chase, the vampire of Sacramento, believed if a house was unlocked or the door was open that the victims were inviting him in. He believed it gave him permission to ambush them, kill the entire family, mutilate their bodies, and drink their blood. Dean Corll inserted glass tubes into the urethras of teenage boys he abducted, which he then shattered with a ball-peen hammer while he had them bound. He would do this and other terrible things to them for up to days at a time before murdering them. Also, Corll invented the handcuff trick that Gacy later used. The handcuff trick was you would tell a naive young person that you could show them a cool trick on how to escape handcuffs. Have them bind themselves, then tell them the trick is you need a key and proceed to murder them. How often many of them could be caught or practically did something in plain sight, and the investigators or police fumbled the ball. The only edible thing in Jeffrey Dahmer's fridge was a 6-pack of Miller High Life. There are far more serial killers alive and active today than we know about. There was a serial killer in Toronto. At one point in the investigation, a tip led them to a very secluded cabin in the woods where humans were being killed, cooked, and eaten. It turned out to be unrelated to their serial killer. When they finally caught their killer, he was seconds away from murdering his next victim.